One of these players was arrested for bringing a weapon into a school zone. Another one ran for 643 yards and 10 touchdowns in a single game. This is what happened to every 5-star running back of the 2010s, according to the 247 Sports Composite Rankings. First up is Michael Dyer, who broke Bo Jackson's Auburn record for most rushing yards by a freshman with 1,093, averaging 6 yards per carry. His sophomore year was great too, 1,249 yards from scrimmage and 10 touchdowns. By the way, throughout this video, if I just say yards instead of rushing yards, then I'm referring to yards from scrimmage, but I don't really feel like saying that phrase 500 million times. This video would be very repetitive if that was the case, and nobody wants to hear all that. But anyways, Dyer's downfall came off the field. He was suspended before the 2011 Chick-fil-A Bowl due to a traffic stop where the officer found a handgun that had been linked to a robbery. Dyer was supposedly removed from Auburn's roster for breaking undisclosed team rules. He missed all of 2012, transferred to Louisville where he barely played, and then went undrafted. The Raiders gave him a shot in 2015, but he never actually played in an NFL game. Marcus Lattimore looked like a sure thing coming out of high school, and he delivered in college, claiming South Carolina's career rushing touchdown record with 38. But on October 27, 2012 against Tennessee, Lattimore suffered a disgusting knee injury. Dislocated knee, every ligament torn, nerve damage, things you do not want to see for a running back trying to go pro. The 49ers still drafted him in the 4th round, but he never played a single snap. He retired at 23 years old due to knee pain and a lack of confidence, and how can you blame the guy? It was just terrible luck. After that, he got into coaching, and super random, but he's also become a poet, and apparently he's a pretty good one. Next up is Dylan Baxter, who won the Silver Pigskin Award for San Diego County's most outstanding high school player. He could play quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. USC landed themselves a playmaker as one of their top recruits in 2010. But just like many others, he barely played in college. In 2010, he had 325 yards. The next year, 30 yards. The whole time he was at USC, he couldn't steer clear of drama either. In the beginning, there were some claims that he was contacted by other schools, which turned out to be false. In 2010, he was suspended by head coach Lane Kiffin for not meeting the standard of a USC student athlete. Then, later in the season, Baxter was held out of a game for taking a golf cart ride with a sports agent. USC had enough of him and he transferred to San Diego State, but he got dismissed before even practicing there because of his academics. Pete Carroll brought him onto the Seahawks practice squad in 2014, but he didn't make the final cut. Then we have Lake Seastrunk, who finished high school with 4,127 yards and 52 touchdowns. He was a USA Today All-USA selection, but his college recruitment was a part of a huge NCAA investigation, and Oregon actually ended up on probation, losing 3 scholarships. Seastrunk transferred to Baylor after his freshman year and had 2 solid seasons with over 1,100 yards in both years. The Redskins took him in the 6th round of the 2014 draft, and aside from the Redskins, he joined the Panthers, Titans, Cowboys, and Jets, but just like many others on our list so far, never played a single game. Now he works as a performance coach and personal trainer in Texas. Okay, here's a guy you probably remember. Isaiah Crowell was a beast who rushed for 4,872 yards, scored 61 touchdowns, and averaged 11.4 yards per carry in high school. Then he went to Georgia, and as a true freshman in 2011, he gained 909 yards with 6 touchdowns. He had 4 games over 100 rushing yards, including a huge performance against Ole Miss with 147. Then on June 29, 2012, Crowell got arrested for possession of a weapon in a school zone, firearm with altered identification, and carrying a concealed weapon. Georgia kicked him off the team for that, along with some other issues. He transferred to Alabama State for 2012 and 2013, totaled 1,716 rushing yards there, and then went undrafted. But unlike many others, Crowell actually made it to the NFL and played pretty well.
Second day in a row, they've got a record high, and Isaiah Crowell steps into the secondary. Crowell takes it inside the 35.
He played 5 years total for the Browns and the Jets, finishing with 4,725 yards and 28 total touchdowns. In 2016 and 2017, he had over 1,000 yards both years. Now he runs the Feed the Crow Foundation, hosting annual charity drives. Alright, moving on to Brandon Williams. He was a 5-star running back out of Royal High School who signed with Oklahoma. As a true freshman, he never did much for the Sooners, so he transferred to Texas A&M and sat out 2012 because of the NCAA transfer rules. He played running back for 2 more seasons at A&M, but then he actually switched to cornerback for his senior year. The Cardinals drafted him in the 3rd round of the 2016 draft, and he fought his way all the way up the depth chart and started 3 games as a rookie on the opposite side of Patrick Peterson. He lost the starting job, got hurt, and before long, he was in the USFL. After retiring, he pivoted into a career as a software developer. DeAnthony Thomas played for Snoop Dogg's Youth Football League and was a beast in high school who played both ways. But he shocked everybody by choosing Oregon over USC, which was his hometown school. As a freshman in 2011, Thomas set an Oregon record with 18 total touchdowns. He played running back, wide receiver, and returned kicks and punts, racking up 2,235 all-purpose yards. He scored 18 touchdowns again in 2012 and also finished college with 5,345 all-purpose yards. The Chiefs drafted him to be an X-Factor player, and he definitely had his moment.
Anthony Thomas, he goes the other way and takes the handoff with a couple of blockers. He's in, touchdown!
But he played 6 years in the NFL and finished with just 700 yards and 7 touchdowns total. He had some nice plays, but it's crazy to think just how good he could have been. Apparently, he's now a top 1,000 player in disc golf. Next up is Malcolm Brown, who set a record at Steele High School with 2,596 yards and 30 touchdowns as a senior. He went to Texas and finished with 3,060 yards over 4 years, then went undrafted, but the Rams signed him in 2015. Brown only had over 500 yards once during his NFL career. In 2020, his last year with the Rams, he became the starter after Todd Gurley left for Atlanta. And a cool fact, Brown actually scored the first touchdown in SoFi Stadium history. In 2021, he played for the Dolphins before going back to the Rams, but he hasn't played since 2022 and only managed to get 1,768 yards over the course of 8 years. But still, the guy made it to the NFL, which is better than a lot of guys on this list. Speaking of somebody who did not make it to the next level, Savon Huggins, who never had more than 410 rushing yards in a single season at Rutgers. He finished his 3-year college career with 938 total yards and 9 touchdowns. He's now the running backs coach at Boston College, where he seems to be fitting in pretty well. In 2024, they rushed for 2,163 yards and 24 touchdowns. Up next, we've got Jonathan Gray. This dude broke the all-time high school touchdown record with 205 at Aledo High School. He went to Texas as one of the most hyped up backs in years, but then the injuries hit him hard. Gray tore his right Achilles in 2013 and his left Achilles in 2015. That's just horrible for a running back and almost immediately ruins a career. He finished with 3,025 yards and 18 touchdowns, but ultimately went undrafted in 2016. After hanging up the cleats, Gray returned to Aledo High School and is now coaching running backs there. Keith Marshall was another straight-up beast. He somehow convinced his buddy Todd Gurley to go to Georgia with him, and they shared carries in a backfield you did not want to face. In their first 5 games of the 2012 season, they combined for 964 rushing yards. Marshall averaged 54 rushing yards per game that year, finished with 850 yards, and scored 9 touchdowns as a freshman. Then he hurt his ACL during his sophomore year and never really recovered. He finished college with 1,604 yards and 15 touchdowns. After running the fastest 40-yard dash time at the 2016 Combine, the Redskins took him in the 7th round. But he went on IR in August of 2016, then he tore his patellar tendon in 2017 training camp, got cut in 2018 without playing a single game. Marshall's now the CEO of the Players Lounge, a company focused on NIL management. Alright, next we have Trey Williams, who in high school ran for 3,890 yards and scored 51 total touchdowns in his senior year alone. But at Texas A&M, his best season was 560 rushing yards. He never had more than 8 touchdowns in a year and finished with 1,673 yards over 3 seasons. He also signed with the Redskins as an undrafted free agent in 2015, then he bounced to 6 different teams. He was never successful in the NFL, which is sad to see, but as you can tell, it's not uncommon. But I'll tell you what, one guy who did have a decent NFL career is Duke Johnson. He was one of the most hyped up prospects coming out of high school. At Miami, he lived up to the hype, finishing college with 4,238 total yards and 30 touchdowns. His final season, he racked up 2,073 yards, and against Virginia Tech that year, he rushed for 249 yards and a touchdown, plus 37 receiving yards and another score. The guy was awesome that season. The Browns took him in the 3rd round of the 2015 draft, and he had a solid rookie year with 913 yards. His best season was in 2017 with 1,041 yards and 7 scores.
You've been, I think, a spark for this team. Every time you touch the football, something positive seems to happen. The fans have really embraced you. You see a lot of number 29 jerseys at the game.
I do have to say, Duke was used more in the receiving game than most running backs, but that's what made him so valuable. Johnson played 8 seasons in the NFL, joining the Texans, Dolphins, and the Bills after the Browns, and retired with 5,135 yards and 23 touchdowns. TJ Yeldon won the Alabama Mr. Football Award over Jameis Winston. He committed to Auburn, then flipped to Alabama during his senior season of high school. At Alabama, he shared time with Eddie Lacy as a freshman, but still had 1,239 yards and 13 touchdowns. Yeldon had over 1,000 yards every year in college. The Jags took him in the 2nd round of the 2015 draft, and he had a solid season as a rookie with over 1,000 yards yet again. After that, though, injuries slowed him down, and he couldn't break through when he moved to Buffalo for the last 2 seasons of his career. He most recently worked out with the 49ers in 2021, but did not make the team. But it's hard to get more impressive than Russell Shell in high school. He finished as the leading rusher in Pennsylvania State history with 9,078 yards and set a national record by rushing for 100 yards or more in 39 consecutive games. But in college, it all fell apart. As a freshman at Pitt, Shell ran for 641 yards and 4 touchdowns in 12 games. Then before his sophomore season, he quit the team and tried to transfer. He almost went to UCLA, tried to come back to Pitt, but the coaches refused. He ended up at West Virginia. He never made it past the practice squads in the NFL, and how's this for a career switch? As of 2021, he was working as part of his family business, sharpening industrial blades. Mario Pender has got to be one of the most disappointing guys on our list today. He committed to Florida State, kept getting hurt, was even declared academically ineligible to play at one point, and when he finally did get on the field, he only played a total of 12 games. In 2016, Pender was permanently dismissed from the team after a domestic battery arrest. He finished college with 436 yards and 6 touchdowns over 2 seasons. Up next is Thomas Tyner, who I briefly mentioned in the beginning of this video. He had 643 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns in a single high school football game, which is insane to think about. Oregon landed him, and in 2014, he was a part of the team that made the national championship, losing to Ohio State 42-20. But shoulder injuries ruined everything Tyner had going for him. On February 5th, 2016, Oregon announced that he was medically retiring. He came back in 2017 to play for Oregon State, but it didn't last. After retiring from football, he got into law enforcement and became a sworn deputy sheriff with the Deschutes County Sheriff's Department. Then there's Kelvin Taylor, the son of former Jaguars running back Fred Taylor.
My dad just always told me to stay positive, stay focused, and just always embrace the process and just always have fun playing the game that you love.
Kelvin broke Emmitt Smith's Florida high school rushing record that was set at 8,804 career yards. He finished his high school career with 12,121 rushing yards and 191 touchdowns. At Florida, his best season was in 2015 when he had 1,185 yards and 13 touchdowns. But his professional career never happened. He signed with the 49ers, Seahawks, Chiefs, Falcons, and Browns, but never made it onto the field for any of them. Keith Ford started at Oklahoma as a freshman, but got suspended indefinitely for academic and team rules violations. So not long after, he announced he was transferring to Texas A&M. He finished college with 2,048 yards and 25 touchdowns. The Bills signed him as an undrafted free agent in 2018, but he only played 2 games with 100 yards total. Derek Green was rated as the #1 running back in the country by Rivals.com and Scout.com, but he only had 931 yards and 7 touchdowns over 3 seasons with Michigan. Not exactly what you hope for when you sign such a big-time prospect. In January of 2016, Michigan granted him a transfer release. He chose TCU for his final season, but in that final season, he only had 141 yards and 2 scores. Unfortunately, he never got a shot to play in the NFL. Alright, now we're at the point in the video where we are reaching some successful players. And first up here is Leonard Fournette. He had insane hype coming into college in 2014. He wasn't just the #1 running back prospect, he was the #1 overall prospect according to the 247 Sports Composite. And at LSU, he lived up to all the hype. As a freshman, he had 1,161 yards and 10 touchdowns. Then his sophomore year, he went absolutely crazy. 2,206 yards and 23 touchdowns, finishing as an All-American and coming in 6th for Heisman voting. Despite injuring his ankle in 2016, the Jaguars still picked him 4th overall in 2017. That draft had Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and Joe Mixon, and Fournette went above all of them, which shows just how highly teams rated him. He exploded onto the scene as a rookie with 1,342 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Fournette out of the backfield, makes the catch at the 10, Fournette to the end zone for a touchdown.
And he had that breakout game in Week 5 against the Steelers where he dominated with 181 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He only played 8 games in 2018, but he did bounce back nicely in 2019 with 1,674 yards.
He looks for the contact. He has a lot of guys scared before they're making the tackle. He brings it. He runs the ball with physicality.
But the physicality that he ran with came with the price down the road. Before that though, he went to Tampa and won a championship with Brady in 2020, rushing for 89 yards and a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Fournette had a few good years in Tampa Bay, mainly because of his pass catching ability, but he did fall off hard in 2023 once he signed with Buffalo. He retired with 6,737 yards and 41 touchdowns. You could say that Leonard Fournette was a NFL success, but I would have to argue that Dalvin Cook is an even bigger one. Cook became Florida State's all-time rushing leader, but even though he was seen as a great prospect, he fell to the 2nd round because of off-field issues. After a pretty quiet rookie year and 920 yards in 2018, Cook went on a tear from 2019 through 2022. In 2019, he had 1,654 yards and 13 touchdowns. In 2020, he had 1,918 yards and 17 touchdowns. But the absolute peak was in weeks 8 and 9 against the Packers and the Lions. He had back-to-back monster games with 478 total yards and 6 combined touchdowns.
I get up on guys pretty quick and try to do what I do. And if it's I gotta lower my helmet by any means, I'm gonna do it.
Cook made 4 Pro Bowls with the Vikings, but after leaving Minnesota, his career fell off a cliff. He played for the Jets and Ravens in 2023 and had just 292 yards total that year. Then in 2024, he joined the Cowboys but didn't do much of anything. And so far, that's the last we've seen of him. Next up is Joe Mixon, who was suspended from the Oklahoma football team for the 2014 season after a misdemeanor assault charge in August of that year. Once he came back though, you could tell this guy was ready to play at the NFL level. 2016, Mixon racked up 1,812 yards and 15 touchdowns. Next year, the Bengals took him in the 2nd round, and he's quietly been one of the best running backs in the league. He can do it all.
And it's time to run, and it's Mixon to the end zone.
Over 8 seasons, he's only gone below 1,000 yards twice. He's a two-time Pro Bowler with almost 10,000 yards from scrimmage and 74 touchdowns. In 2024, he signed with the Texans and had a good year, but he's been kept out all of 2025 with a foot injury apparently. There really hasn't been any clarification surrounding Mixon this year, which is really odd. Another guy that I'd say had a pretty good career in the NFL was Sony Michel. The hype was there for sure. He finished college at Georgia with 4,259 yards and 39 touchdowns over 4 years. The Patriots took him in the first round of the 2018 draft, and he got a ring in Super Bowl 53 during his rookie year, scoring the game's only touchdown. Michel was great in the playoffs that season. He had 336 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns, including 94 rushing yards in the Super Bowl. He was also a huge reason that the Pats were able to beat the Chiefs in that 37-31 overtime win in the AFC Championship. He even got another ring when he went to the Rams and won Super Bowl 56. Michel retired with 3,682 yards and 20 touchdowns. Rock Thomas started at Auburn but never had over 500 yards in a season. Then he transferred to Jacksonville State where he ran for 782 yards. But his only playing time in the NFL came with the Vikings in 2018 over 5 games. He had 51 yards total. He barely saw the field and actually had 2 games with negative rushing yards. Nowadays it looks like he's doing training sessions with younger kids, helping them get into peak football shape. Then there's Nick Chubb, who I'd say had great success at the pro level earlier in his career. He finished high school with 6,983 rushing yards and 102 rushing touchdowns. But Chubb wasn't only gifted with football talent. He was an all-around track athlete, competing in the 100 and 200 meter, along with being a 4A state champion in shot put in 2014. Oh, and did I forget to mention he was a state champion in weightlifting too. Once he got to Georgia, he was dominating as a freshman after Todd Gurley got suspended. Chubb had 1,760 yards and 16 touchdowns to lead the SEC. He finished his college career with 5,130 yards and 48 touchdowns. The Browns took him in the second round of the 2018 draft, and he made 4 straight Pro Bowls from 2019 through 2022. He even finished third in Browns franchise history in rushing yards, trailing only Jim Brown and Leroy Kelly. But in 2023 against the Steelers, Chubb suffered a serious knee injury where it appeared to be bent in the other direction. He was carted off and missed the rest of the season. 2024, he broke his foot in Week 15 against the Chiefs, ending his season yet again. Now he's with the Texans, looking to reclaim that Pro Bowl form, but at this point in time, it's hard to believe that he's ever going to have the same juice.
Chubb's got 18. Add to it, Nick Chubb, touchdown Texans.
We're going back to Alabama for the next guy on our list with Damian Harris. He backed up Derrick Henry as a true freshman in 2015 and of course didn't have to do too much. But the next season he had 889 yards. In 2017 and 2018 he had over 1,000 yards both years. The Patriots took him in the third round of 2019, but he only played 2 games that rookie year. After that he got better each year. In 2020 he had 743 yards. In 2021, he had 1,061 yards and 15 touchdowns, tied with James Conner for the second most among all running backs that year. Unfortunately, he lost a step after getting hurt, and that was pretty much it for him. He played for the Bills in 2023 and retired in 2024 after 5 NFL seasons. But at least he did better than So-So Jamabo. Remember when he went viral for his college decision prank? That was kind of his peak. At UCLA, his best season was 2017 when he scored 6 rushing touchdowns, including 1 in 4 straight games. But he finished college with only 1,641 yards and 13 touchdowns. He never made it to the NFL. Next, we've got Miles Sanders, who won Pennsylvania's Mr. Football Award his senior year. He picked Penn State over Pittsburgh and a bunch of other schools. He didn't do too much during his first 2 years of college, but his junior year he had 1,413 yards and 9 touchdowns. The Eagles took him in the second round of 2019, and he had a great rookie year with 1,327 yards and 6 touchdowns, even finishing 4th in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting behind Kyler Murray, Josh Jacobs, and A.J. Brown. In total, Sanders had 3 seasons over 1,000 yards and made his first Pro Bowl in 2022.
On the other side for Philadelphia. The run here with Miles Sanders. Good job to turn it upfield. And Sanders with a big run.
but since then he's fallen off. He played for the Panthers in 2023 and 2024, but wasn't very good there. And in 2025, he signed with the Cowboys, but got injured in Week 4. Now he's out for the rest of this season. And now we have to talk about Najee Harris, who was one of the most hyped up running back recruits in a long time. A lot of people compared him to Adrian Peterson. In high school, he had over 2,000 rushing yards 3 straight seasons and finished with 99 touchdowns. At Alabama, his last 2 years were insane. He had 1,528 yards and 20 touchdowns as a junior, then 1,891 yards and 30 touchdowns as a senior. The Steelers took him in the first round of 2021, and he made the Pro Bowl as a rookie with 1,667 yards and 10 touchdowns. The guy is like a throwback to the classic running backs from the 2000s.
Here, 3rd and short, handed off for Harris. He's got a first down. Najee Harris has a big gain. Turns the corner, hurdles to the 40.
He's had over 1,000 yards every year until this one. He signed with the Chargers in 2025, but he tore his Achilles in Week 3 and is out for the year after just having 86 total yards. Next up is Cam Akers, who was a dual threat in high school. As a senior, he rushed for 2,105 yards and 34 touchdowns, and even threw for 3,128 yards and 31 touchdowns. At Florida State, he had 1,140 yards and 8 touchdowns as a freshman, and his final college season, he had 1,369 yards and 18 touchdowns. The Rams took him in the second round of 2020. After an okay rookie year, he tore his Achilles in 2021 and missed pretty much that whole season. But he did come back for the playoffs and got a ring for Super Bowl 56. His best season was 2022 when he had 903 yards and 7 touchdowns. In fact, he had over 100 rushing yards the last 3 weeks of that season, including that big 3-touchdown game against the Broncos in Week 16. He's played 3 games with the Vikings this season and even threw a touchdown pass.
This is Cam Akers. He throws wide open. Touchdown.
But he did get cut in November, and now he signed with the Seahawks. Stephen Carr played 4 years at USC, but never had 1,000 yards in a single season. He was granted an extra year of eligibility because of the pandemic and played 1 year at Indiana where he had 693 yards. Considering the hype coming out of high school, this guy was a big bust. He finished college with 2,433 yards and 20 touchdowns. Kind of like Kalen Laburn, who played at Florida State in 2018 and 2019 but barely saw the field. In 2018, he had 37 yards in 2 games. In 2019, he had 363 yards from scrimmage and 4 touchdowns. Then he missed 2020 and 2021 completely. 2022, he transferred to Marshall and finally did break out. He had 1,629 yards and 16 touchdowns. The 49ers signed him as an undrafted free agent in May of 2023, but he was cut in August. DeAndre Swift started at Georgia as a freshman in 2017, but he was the 3rd string running back behind Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. He had 771 yards and 4 touchdowns that year. In 2018, he saw more time with 1,346 yards and 13 touchdowns. In 2019, he had 1,434 yards and 8 touchdowns. The Lions took him in the second round of the 2020 draft, and he's been solid ever since. His rookie year, he had 878 yards, made the Pro Bowl in 2023 with the Eagles after being traded from Detroit. Now in 2025 with the Bears, he's already over 1,000 yards.
Williams to Swift. Touchdown.
Unfortunately, this next guy up did not live up to the hype. Zamir White rushed for 2,086 yards and 34 touchdowns as a high school senior, but he tore his ACL in the second round of the state playoffs. He committed to Georgia but suffered a second torn ACL during summer training camp. When he finally got onto the field, he had 2,175 yards over 3 years with 25 touchdowns.
And Auburn's defense in particular got penetration, couldn't wrap him up, and what a play!
The Raiders took him in the 4th round of the 2022 draft, but as a rookie, he only had 70 yards from scrimmage in 14 games. He saw more action in 2023 with 549 yards and 1 touchdown. Then in 2024, he got injured and missed more time, only playing in 8 games. This season, he's struggling for playing time behind Ashton Genty and only has 44 yards through 4 games. But that's still better than Lorenzo Lingard, who played at Miami in 2018 and 2019, then Florida from 2020 through 2022, and finished at Akron in 2023. His best year was that final season when he put up 1,009 yards and 6 touchdowns. Over his entire college career, he only had 1,326 yards. The Giants signed him in 2024 as an undrafted rookie, and he spent some time in Jacksonville, but he's never played a regular season snap. Ricky Slade was seen as somebody who could be the hire to Saquon Barkley. He came into Penn State with a ton of hype and showed flashes of promise during his freshman year, but didn't really do anything after that. He only had 588 yards and 8 touchdowns in college over 2 seasons. He transferred to Old Dominion, but never played it down. Then there's Trey Sanders, who played 3 seasons at Alabama and 2 at TCU. He had 836 yards and 9 touchdowns over 5 years in college. Yeah, not exactly brilliant numbers, and there's not too much to say other than that. And it doesn't get much better with John Emery Jr., who played 5 seasons at LSU, then played for UTSA in 2025. He was really fun to watch when he was actually playing and healthy, but that didn't happen too often. He never had more than 504 yards in a single season. He finished college with 1,457 yards and 16 touchdowns. He just couldn't get his grades up, and when he did, he kept getting injured. And then there's Jerrion Ealy. He rushed for over 5,000 yards and 84 touchdowns in high school. And at Ole Miss, he had 2,780 yards and 24 touchdowns over 3 seasons, along with 2 kick return touchdowns. His best game was probably against Southeastern Louisiana, setting a school record with 273 all-purpose yards. The Chiefs signed him as an undrafted free agent in 2022, and he talked a big game. But he bounced on and off their practice squad multiple times and got suspended 6 games for a PED violation. He did win a Super Bowl ring when the Chiefs beat the Eagles in Super Bowl 57, but he got cut in 2023. So that's every 5-star running back recruit from the 2010s, and I don't know about you guys, but it blows my mind how many of these players never really made it to the next level. Let me know in the comment section down below which player you guys missed the most. Thank you so much for watching to the very end of this video, and if you want to see another one just like this, check out this video right here.